guys? My name is Tim Roswick, and today we're talking about why you should have a vision for your game and how to create one. So specifically, let's start with why, and then we'll kind of go into the how stuff. Creating a vision for your game is when you sit down and you think about what you want the game to be, but you define it. You don't just say, oh, I want to make this big open world RPG game with a bunch of stuff. You say, I want to have this, and I want this game to be like Dark Souls, but with this. And you have to kind of scope it down a little bit more than that to where it's not just this big, gigantic thing. It's basically defining the game, defining what the game will become, defining what the game will be. It's hard to do, right? And a lot of the problems that we struggle with as indie developers stem from the fact that the vision changes over time. You may start out with a platformer, but then you want to add anti-gravity, you want to add this other stuff, you want to add a bunch of other stuff, and the vision changes over time. But most people don't actually start out with a vision of the complete whole. They don't ever say, okay, this is what the game looks like on a high level. It's got 9 levels. Each level progresses the story one little bit. The beginning looks like this, the ending looks like this, boom. You know what I mean? Like having a defined vision like that of what the game is can kind of lock you into something where you develop it and you don't end up with scope creep and adding a bunch of stuff in later on, or changing the vision later on, because changing a vision is a major problem when you've been working on stuff for months or years. You completely change what it is. I know I'm going through the same thing with Phylophobia, and one of the first things that I did when I committed to finishing was I changed the vision. I changed the scope, and I changed a bunch of things about it, and that led to the game being delayed because it was something that either should have been done earlier or was something that definitely should have been done before the release date was announced, so it would have been factored into it. But the vision is important because it keeps you from deviating. Not only in scope, which is a big problem, right? It keeps you from deviating, adding a bunch of stuff in and just ending up with this never-ending game. But it's also important because it keeps you from deviating in style, in content, in a bunch of different stuff. As game developers, especially as hobbyists, we have a bad habit of adding things that we want to add, adding in random mechanics, adding in random items, power-ups, stuff like that. And we sit down, we're like, I want to make a cool super jump mechanic now. I'm going to add that in, and then you do that a couple times, and you end up with all this shit that's like, do you really need it in the game? So having that vision early on is actually really important. And it's not saying that it can't evolve, because it absolutely does. But when it evolves, you need to make a conscious decision and say, hey, this is a different direction than we were going before. This does not fit my vision. I'm going to change my vision to what this is. Now, I've actually created a document in my files where I actually keep 2 sentences on what the game is. I've had to do this with Phylophobia a lot because I keep trying to change the game, and this one of the reasons why I'm sharing this is because I know how painful this is. But defining the game into a document allows me to say, okay, that's what the game is. And every time I want to add something, I say, does it fit that? Does it fit that? And if I make a different change to the game that's not fitting with that, I think it's a better change, and I think it's a better direction for the game. It's not something that I make lightly, but I will change my written down vision and definition of what the game is to this. Now, this is different than what a lot of people would consider a vision. For a lot of people, vision is just like this idea of what the game is. For me, I like to be specific. I like to be concrete. So my definition of vision might be a little bit different than other people's. But for me, I'm talking about being specific and concrete of what the game is that you want to build. It is a roguelike with a play time of 30 to 40 minutes that, it has 50 different rooms possible and, 10 enemy types, being specific like that. One of the things early on that I did with Phylophobia that was helpful was I just decided that there was going to be 100 levels. And so that really kind of helped me power through working on each one of the levels. Now, ultimately, I decided to actually do more than 100 levels or change the way that the levels were interacting with each other, because the way that the game ended up playing was actually pretty quick per level. Like some of the levels you can beat in less than 30 seconds or a minute. So 100 levels isn't a whole lot in a game like this. So I changed that and I modified it and I moved it on over time. So that's why vision is important, because I feel like it keeps you focused. There's so many big games I worked on where I didn't have something in writing like that, where I didn't define the vision, where I didn't know what I was working towards, and it just got convoluted. And also, in addition to that, knowing what you want to build can help you build more effectively. So in a case of, if you have a roguelike and you have a bunch of, I don't know, items or potions or whatever, if you know you're going to build 5, right? You know you're going to build 5, then you might want to just hard code them all into your game. If you know you're going to build 500, then you might want to build a system to read them from an array, if that makes sense. This came up in one of our elite meetings. That's why I'm bringing it up. But it was a good topic. So it really, the vision is really important to kind of keep in mind when you're building, because it helps you build the thing. And if your goalpost is constantly moving, as you're moving, you're not getting anywhere, right? So you got to have a firm planted vision so you can work towards it. So how do you do that? What exactly do you do to actually get there? This is the fun part, right? So the way that you work towards a vision, or the way that you build a vision, for me, always really starts with what I'm trying to accomplish. If I am trying to, let's say, make my first dollar, or make, get 1,000 players or something like that, or just make a game that makes me happy, all 3 of those goals, as you can imagine, they look very, very different. And defining the vision for the game, I think, is a little bit different depending on what you're trying to do, who you're trying to appeal to, and what you're trying to accomplish. Making your first dollar is a lot different than trying to finish your first game. There's different goals there, there's different objectives, and your vision would be different too, depending on what you're trying to do. And I think that's worth taking into account. So really think about what you want to accomplish with this game. Like, what is it for? Do you want to make money on it? Do you want to just release it? Do you want your friends to say good job and high five you? Like, what do you want out of it? And then from there, ask yourself, what does this game need to be to get there? Now, humans, myself included, we're really good at lying to ourselves. We're really good at making stuff up. So if you say, oh, I want to make my first commercial game, and immediately you say, oh, I have to make the next Halo to make that happen, you're lying to yourself, okay? That's not true. That's not real. You gotta get in the real world. You gotta get feedback from people. You gotta talk to other human beings, okay? Because I'm telling you, that's not true. So just be aware of your own, like, cognitive, things that you tend to say. If you're hard on yourself, if you're a perfectionist, like, just be aware of the things about yourself that could impact that decision and work toward it. I have a video that is a 1-page game design document. I recommend you guys check that out, because it's pretty similar to what I'm talking about with the vision. In that design document, I have a mantra statement, which I think will help you. If you click on the link and you download the document template, because I actually give a template, you will find that it's kind of like a questionnaire, and you can kind of go through it and read and kind of go through this and define your vision. And I feel like that's really useful. And how do you actually get to the vision, though? Like, so knowing where you want to go is great. Knowing what you want to accomplish is great. But sometimes when you're building a game, the game changes, right? Sometimes you're just like, no, that doesn't work. I built the thing and it doesn't work. I built the thing that I was supposed to work. The jumping and the moving was supposed to work, but it just doesn't feel fun. So that's where prototyping comes in. If you haven't heard of prototyping before, basically it's the idea that you build the simplest, quickest, fastest version of what you're trying to make with cubes and circles and basic shapes, and just get it working. And you find if that's fun. Now, prototyping is different than building regular games, because prototyping, you can build a bunch of different prototypes in a small amount of time, test a bunch of stuff out, see what works, and then you define your vision. If you jump into a game with the same code base and then immediately try and define the vision, and a bunch of stuff just changes over time and it keeps changing, like, that's going to get really crazy, right? So I would experiment in the prototype phase. I would mess around with a lot of stuff. And it's okay to be in the prototype phase. It's okay if you're making a roguelike, it's okay to mess around with room generation and all that stuff and build that stuff, see how it works, if, you know, mess with items and all that stuff. You want to experiment a lot in the prototype phase, because experimenting in the prototype phase will save you a ton of time. I just started pouring rain. It'll save you a ton of time by defining your vision. Once you know what you want to build, you need to stick to it and, you know, only make changes that you think are absolutely necessary. That's how you get through. That's how you pull through. That's how you make shit happen. So I hope that was useful. I'm going to have some more videos on prototyping soon. Actually, I got to talk to some experts and stuff. Maybe there's some people we can get on the channel to talk to you guys about prototypes and the benefits and how to do it and all that stuff. But it's definitely something I want to explore in the future. For now, I hope this helped you. I know it was a lot of stuff to pack in to 10 minutes, but, you know, try my best here. My brain's all over the place right now. But thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, hit the like button. Do you have a vision for your game? What do you want your game to be? What is your clearly defined vision? Leave it down in the comment section below, because I would love to hear it. But once again, my name is Tim Roswick, and I'll see you again tomorrow.